JB Cycles with an update on March the 12th. So my 4-week cycle here in black is now turning bearish. So this green scenario is out, and we see we are kind of following my bearish red scenario. And the 4-week cycle has a low around 24th. So we are at this descending red trend line. We could see some kind of a bounce here and then go down into the cycle low. Very possible. Let's zoom out a bit. We have my 7-year cycle all along been suggesting a possible downtrend into the summer, and you know, doesn't look like we are. This uptrend since October, it didn't look bearish. It was not a normal bear market rally, but it still could be or can be, because although it's not looking very bearish, it's neither looking very bullish. It's struggling. It's not taking off really. So you know, we could still be in this scenario similar to the 2000 bear market. We see here we made a kind of a B, C bear flag, but didn't see follow through, and we dropped down and struggled with this trend line before we capitulated. And it's very possible we are in a similar scenario. A, B, C bear flag, now down at this trend line. We could drop a little bit below, a bit above before we capitulate. So I have made a scenario or a composite of several cycles. Unfortunately, I didn't have this composite going back 6 months. Maybe that would have helped me in this phase. Anyway, we see the composite shows this A, B, C bear flag, although we are not perfectly correlating here. We see this low around New Year was early, and this top recently was a bit early, but looks like we are in this formation now and should see a drop down into the summer and possibly even lower low around September. And when I draw this call it scenario into this previous one, I have it here, and you see that looks very similar to the 2000 bear market. So possible, you know, if this is still a bear market, if we get more bearish confirmations here, breakdowns, we could look for a low around early July, or even a lower low around September. Let's switch to perhaps this one again. We are breaking down, but still above this low from December, so that would be the next confirmation. If you look at this yellow wavelet, you know, looks like it wants to bounce, but be careful, because you know, if you go back, like, well, say here, it probably also looked like it wanted to bounce, but you know, we just continue down. Here the wavelet also turned up, but still we continue down. So when these longer cycles or bigger wavelets are going down, you should be careful looking at the shorter wavelets, because the bigger cycles are pulling you down. So I had this scenario for an A, B, C correction, and I said last time it didn't look very bearish, but now we are it looks definitely more bearish now. So we are maybe not perfectly in sync with this scenario. You know, if we draw it like this and maybe like this, it suggests around 2 more weeks of downside, and that's pretty similar to my 4-week cycle. You know, that has about 10 calendar days or up to 2 weeks into this cycle low. So where to go next? I had this observation of a strong geomagnetic storm 2 weeks ago, and I said it often happens just before a major top. So this is the Norwegian market, and if you look at how did the Norwegian market perform after such a geomagnetic storm that happened at this point, you see often we have a top some 1 week, 1 or 2 weeks later, and then we get the bigger correction. If we look at the average of several of these geomagnetic storms, we see the storm was here, the top was a bit later, and then this scenario or average suggests a low early April. So in this time span we have some cycles and scenarios suggesting a low around end of March, early April. Let's switch to some shorter cycles. So let's have a look at the 10-week cycle. The 10-week cycle is now topping. We see we had a cycle low here. This was a bit late. And now what's going on here? Well, if we look at the Norwegian one, we see the 10-week cycle in yellow and the composite in blue. And as we see around here, there were other cycles working opposite to the 10-week cycle. So you see the composite, it didn't show any low at the 10-week cycle low. And if you look at the Norwegian market, here the 10-week cycle, it disappeared kind of because of other cycles. So the market actually correlated well with the composite. It had a top around there and the weakness into here. And we see that's exactly what the Norwegian market did. And now the composite and the cycle has a top, and we are starting to break down here possibly. So I've drawn a general scenario here. Maybe some more downside bounce and a low into late April. As we see here going on, the composite is correlating well with the 10-week cycle. So some kind of low end of April perhaps, and lower low around early July, and a possible even lower low in around September. So that the same goes for the S&P. We have a cycle low end of April. And let's have a look at the quarterly cycle. That's interesting. The quarterly cycle in green, and often we see a half-year cycle all within this. So we have a major low around March, around September, around March, around September, around March. This one is not that kind of a March and around September. So it's coming up here now, possible bigger cycle low now in March. So we have to see there if the market wants to rally here starting early April. However, the other cycles are telling a different story. Here's the composite. So not perfectly correlating with the composite recent months, but the composite, it's topping right now and it's going down into late April. So the dominant 16-week cycle, that one is topping right now. Well, the coming week. So we see the market is not correlating well with this cycle now. This was perhaps this cycle low, and this top was a very early cycle high. So this cycle still allows for some kind of a pop up, and then we have a cycle low around late May. But the composite has a low late April, a bounce, and we can't see it here, but the composite goes down again down into early July. And here's the bigger, the double of this 16 or 17 week cycle. You see, you have a major low here, If we look at